Hi, my name is Kristen Flewitt. I'm the Senior Quality Manager at the Ohio chapter of the American Academy of Pediatrics. I'm sorry I can't be with you today for the meeting, but I just wanted to give you a quick overview of some additional data that we pulled from the last iteration of the Preschool Vision Screening Quality Improvement Project. Just a data disclaimer so that it kind of set the playing field for the data that you're going to take a look at. The following data stratification is based on random chart review data. Each of the practices in the last wave of the project used chart review to really assess their progress in the quality improvement project. The data was collected during a quality improvement project that utilized chart review to assess practice change. That was really the purpose in their screening and referral practices. Population data reporting was beyond the scope of that project, and if we were wanting to do something like that, it would just require some additional and more extensive work. So the data that we're going to look at is from one of the participating practices. And the question that we have for you is, if this data is helpful or useful, we certainly can do this for the other practices that were part of the project. It would just take a bit of time because we do use the raw data to then summarize the information that you're going to see. So the data is from a practice in the 44052 zip code. It is from March 2020 through September 2020. It is 45 random chart reviews of patients age 3, 4, and 5. Just a couple of notes. All screenings that were completed were passed, so there were no failed screenings. All patients that were found to be untestable were determined as being able to be screened at another time. Those patients were not referred to specialty care. It was deemed that they could be brought back into the practice and another screening attempted. And just anecdotally, many of those patients were 3-year-old young patients that the practice was really working on their skill with screening younger patients. All right, and then if we look at the breakdown of gender, we're at almost 50-50, so we had 44% male and 50% female. And then for both genders, 100% of females and 100% of males had a screening attempt. This slide is looking at gender with screening completion. So 84% of females had a screening completed, and 80% of males had a screening completed. Those patients that were unable to be screened, the initial time that it was attempted, were all determined to be likely to complete a screening at a later date, and the plan was to bring them back into the practice for a follow-up screening. This is just a slide showing racial breakdown. You can take a look at that. About 36% were white Caucasian, 22% African American, 24% Hispanic, and 13% biracial. The next couple of slides are going to look at race with screening completion. 81% of white patients had a screening completed, with 19% being untestable. At that initial date. 70% of African Americans screening was completed, and then 30% were untestable at the initial attempt. With Hispanic patients, 82% were able to have a screening completed at the initial attempt, with 18% being untestable, and then 100% of biracial patients had a completed screening at that first attempt. This slide just shows a mix of payer. As you can see, this practice is a very large Medicaid population provider, and so we have 83% of patients there were Medicaid was the payer. And then just a breakdown with Medicaid. So for patients with Medicaid as the payer, 78% of those did have a completed screening at initial attempt. The other 22% were untestable, and with all other payers, 100% were had a completed screening at the initial attempt. Thank you, and again, as I mentioned, this is the breakdown for one practice. The other practices would be a similar type of data, meaning it would be from just additional detail from random chart review data. So one of the questions we had for you is this helpful or useful, particularly because it is from just random chart reviews. So thank you, and look forward to hearing more from you soon.